Welcome to our conversation on the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive, otherwise known as the AIFMD. My name is Chris Hayes, and I'm Senior Policy Counsel here at the Institutional Limited Partners Association, and I lead our global advocacy activities, including those in the European Union. I'm joined today by Elli Sistonen, who is a legal counsel at Varma Mutual Pension Insurance Company, one of our EU-based members in Finland. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the AIFMD, which has come back on the radar because the European Commission has decided to review the law and consider making changes to it. These changes could have a direct impact on limited partners in the European Union and the managers that they invest with in the private equity space. ILPA has formed a working group of 12 EU-based limited partners to help us engage on the process. And Elli is one of those members who has been extremely helpful as ILPA looks to represent the interests of LPs in connection with the consultation. Elli, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. I'm happy to join here today. So I'm working as legal counsel in Varma's investment legal and compliance team. Varma is a mutual pension insurance company based in Finland and an institutional investor investing in assets collected as pension contributions. I'm working with investments, including alternative investments and funds. I have also previously worked with financial regulation at a law firm. I'm also participating in ILPA's AIFMD working group, which is formed of ILPA's members in the EU and consisting of other representatives of institutional investors to help ILPA engage in the AIFMD review and respond to the Commission's consultation.
Thanks for sharing your background, Elli, and your familiarity with AIFMD. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the value of AIFMD to limited partners. Many LPs may not realize how AIFMD impacts them and potentially adds value as well as some protection to them as investors, while also presenting some potential hurdles to access to non-EU based managers. Can you explain why AIFMD should matter to LPs based in the EU and tell us why Varma, your employer, cares about this legislation?
AIFMD covers managing and marketing of alternative investment funds by alternative investment fund managers in the EU. So it is important for LPs to provide different ways of access to these managers, either through marketing after EU managers have been authorized or through passporting or national private placement regimes and reverse solicitation for non-EU managers. AIFMD sets requirements for the managers that manage and market these funds in Europe. This includes private equity funds, hedge funds, and real estate funds, so funds that are outside the scope of the UCITS directive. AIFMD provides different protections to investors. This includes pre-investments and ongoing disclosures to investors, conduct and fair treatment rules, including avoiding and managing conflicts of interest. AIFMD also sets requirements on risk management, remuneration, safekeeping of assets with depository and valuation. In the working group's proposals, one suggestion is to increase mandatory investor disclosures regarding fees and expenses. This would mean regularly reporting of all fees and expenses, including fees charged to portfolio companies and paid to affiliates and other service providers. There has been some concerns about lack of transparency in the private equity sector, and these issues have also been discussed in the KPMG report that the Commission sought as part of the review. And the working group suggests that ILPA's own fee template could be one option for investors, but the template would not need to be legislated to allow a more flexible approach. Disclosures are now subject to negotiations, and some LPs may be unable to access the information. So it would be very valuable for the investors' negotiations to have these disclosures on the level of AIFMD.
Thanks, Ellie. I think that was really helpful to give us a good sense of what AIFMD does and how it impacts limited partners, including ILPA's members. I noticed you focus heavily on both access to global managers by EU headquartered limited partners, as well as the potential to require fee and expense reporting from AIFMs under potential changes that are contemplated to the AIFMD. I wonder if you could share a little bit more about national private placement regimes, or MPPRs, and how those are beneficial and also their limitations. Then could you share a little bit about how LPs are accessing managers through the reverse solicitation process, as well as some of the challenges around utilizing reverse solicitation for EU-based LPs?
The working group's view is that it's important to keep this in place. And as to reverse solicitation, this is an exception of the marketing requirements. So professional investors may contact a certain manager that is not registered for marketing in their member state. So it is important way to access these managers for investors. But one suggestion is also to add some clarity to the concept of reverse solicitation, as there may be different interpretations in different member states.
Thanks, Ellie. When we think about this, it's really important to provide as many avenues as possible for EU-based LPs to access managers that may not be able to market their funds in the EU, given the sophistication of our members in the EU and their need to diversify globally to serve their beneficiaries. Ellie, you mentioned that you're an active member of ILPA's AIFMD working group. This group has been really helpful to ILPA as we engage on this important regulatory overhaul project. And could you share a little bit about the working group's priorities and how this group of LPs is working to advance the interests of LPs as part of the AIFMD review process in Brussels?
Yes, so ILPA has organized a working group out of its members in the EU to engage in the AIFMD review and also respond to the Commission's consultation. So top priorities identified in the working group relate to ensuring investor access to AIFMs globally, ensuring that costs and benefits are balanced for the depository requirement, and to increase mandatory investor disclosures regarding fee reporting. As regards ensuring investor access, the working group promotes clarifying the use of reverse solicitation processes. LPs are relying much on reverse solicitation now to access managers that are not marketing in their home EU country and to ensure diversification outside of the EU. The working group also supports maintaining national private placement regimes to ensure access to non-EU managers in member states that have these in place, and also introducing a third country passport if this would be politically feasible. The working group also supports current system of delegation, which including ability to delegate investment management functions outside the EU to ensure access to these managers. In respect of depository requirements, the working group promotes to limit the cost of the depository requirements under AIFMD, and, for example, would support introducing a depository passport to increase competition between depositories. The working group also has considered the role of national regulators and ESMA in the consultation and preventing of regulatory arbitrage of GPs moving between member states. And finally, one of the most important suggestions was to add fee reporting, which was discussed also earlier.
Thanks, Ellie. Really appreciate you walking us through some of the elements that the working group is tackling and why LPs should care about this important regulatory effort in the European Union, as well as its implications for limited partners. For the members' awareness, ILPA submitted our comments to the Commission's consultation at the end of January. We've been engaged with the European Commission throughout this process and will continue to be engaged to share the perspective of our European Union-based LPs and to engage directly with European Union member states who are represented on the Council of Ministers and which will ultimately receive the proposed legislation for the Commission once it's released as a legislative proposal in 2021. We welcome input engagement from our EU-based members on this issue, and we greatly appreciate folks that want to get more involved. So if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to get you more involved in the process, and we look forward to trying to ensure that LP interests are reflected in the final legislation. Thank you again for joining me, and we really appreciate the conversation and your expertise.
Thank you for having me.